Hello everyone, Manic Mercurian back once again, and for this birth chart reading, this is for Tuesday, October 13th, 1998 at 7:34 p.m. in Stolberg, Germany, which is in Westphalen, and this person has Sun in Libra, Moon in Leo, Taurus Rising. And the first thing I notice is a pretty strong Venus influence. The Sun is ruled by Venus, the Rising is ruled by Venus, which means that Venus is also the chart ruler, and then Venus is in domicile in Libra, so it's also a final dispositor. And Venus is also somewhat close to the Sun. I wouldn't say it's conjunct, but it's 5 degrees away, so it's relatively close. So this means that you would have a very easygoing demeanor, a very attractive demeanor, meaning that you get along with a wide variety of people. Your Moon in Leo, which is does not have a Venus influence, but it would still reinforce the same theme that you get along with pretty much everyone. To me, this chart looks like a person who's very friendly, and I wouldn't say you're domineering though, and I know you probably have heard some of this in my Libra Sun Leo Moon video, which I believe you watched, but it's really a nice balance because the Libra Sun brings a lot of empathy and focus on other people. It makes you diplomatic and polite and, um, not too overbearing, kind of just like light and detached. But then the Leo Moon brings in that fire and that confidence and that outgoing and free spirited nature. So it's this really kind of perfect blend of these two energies when it comes to socializing or having a good like social or party type of energy. So you would have a really nice demeanor. You'd be easy for people to get along with, generally speaking. There are a couple maybe exceptions, which I'll get into, that are more specific, but just general. As for like the base tone, the general tone for your personality, I would say you're very easy to get along with. You're probably pretty upbeat, pretty positive, and you can get along with people from all walks of life. Libra Sun, Leo Moon is actually pretty open-minded. You can, really empathize with people or relate to people or at least just have a good time with people from, a wide array of different backgrounds and circumstances. And you do have a couple energies which are a little bit different. So Mercury in Scorpio and Mars in Virgo are a little bit more heavy and they're more oriented toward they're a lot more focused and they're a little bit more cynical. So having Mercury in Scorpio, it does mean that you can be slightly pessimistic at times, and this will especially be brought up when your mind is really going strongly. So when you're in the depths of analysis or you're thinking through a problem, you can be a little bit of a pessimist or you can be a little bit cynical. So you just feel like you're a realist. You want to make sure that everything's working out, and you can be a little bit paranoid at times. And I think this is, again, it's not the overtone or it's not the main bass tone, but it is kind of mixed in there as well that there's this side of you that can be kind of paranoid. But the same Mercury and Scorpio, it's not just paranoid. It's actually a pretty strong sign because you would be very analytical. You're not only analytical, you're also very intuitive. So, this placement can be a little bit negative or a little bit paranoid, but at the same time, it would give you a sharp intellect and maybe a kind of witty, dark sense of humor. And it would mean that you have this really nice combination of intuition and analytical ability, which allows you to figure out problems and predict the future, maybe not in like a crazy psychic kind of way, but just in sort of a strategic planning sort of way. Mercury and Scorpio likes to plan, and this represents your mind. So you're always kind of projecting into the future and wanting to make sure that you're on the right trajectory, that you're planning. And this would add a little bit of ambition into the mix as well. And this is a nice segue to your Mars in Virgo, which is a very ambitious placement. So this would make you a hard worker. Um, all these first energies that I talked about, the base tone of Libra, Sun, Leo Moon, Taurus Rising, these are all such graceful and polite and diplomatic placements, but they can be a little bit lazy at times, I would say. They can, they like to have a good time. They like to have, that fun party energy. They like to have fun with other people and enjoy themselves. which is great, and they're good at that. But then the downside of that is that they can hold on to that those fun times too long, and then neglect their um, their priorities. However, you have this Mars in Virgo, which is really great at balancing things here because it means that you are a hard worker, even though you are, very easygoing and just want to have a good time. You definitely have all those traits still there, but you're also not afraid to work hard, and you want things to be organized. That's very important to you. With Mars, Virgo, Libra, Sun, and then Mercury and Scorpio, I think you'd be a very organized person. You'd very much want things to be organized, and if they're not organized, it would stress you out a lot. Having a cluttered house, would be irritating because, I think we all kind of soak up our surroundings, but you especially are, kind of like a tidy person, and it, it would potentially make you really irritated if your surroundings are not, clean or organized to some extent. So, that's just really common with Mars and Virgo. It also just means that the way you tackle projects or plans or ambitions is very like detailed, and you naturally break down very large projects into many little projects. Um, you take things one step at a time basically, and you accomplish things, step by step with all these little steps that add up to a really big project. So it's actually a pretty good way to approach things. Mercury in Scorpio is a little bit like this as well, but especially your Mars in Virgo, it represents how you approach your ambitions, I guess, or how you attain your desires. So that's a really nice mix. All in all, you have a really balanced chart. So far, I think. Again, just to kind of summarize what I've said, you are very easygoing, very easy to get along with. You can, relate to people and have fun with others from all walks of life. But at the same time, you're not just kind of complacent or focusing on having fun all the time. You're also very organized and disciplined, and you're kind of constantly planning, a few steps ahead into the future, wanting to make sure you're on the right trajectory. So yeah, really, honestly, really well balanced chart here. Um, I will say something a little bit different is Sun in sixth house. So, and this gets a little tricky because it can be a little bit contradictory. But despite your knack at relating to so many people and being so approachable and getting along with people, at the same time you can feel very misunderstood at times, and it can be hard for you to have a strong sense of identity because I think all Libras have this to some extent. Your Leo moon helps this a little bit, but you can kind of feel lost or vacant, and you're like partnerships and friendships are very important to you because without people in your life, you almost have no identity. Leo moon means that you are confident and outgoing, and you have that fire about you. You have that spark and that charisma, that you can be very confident. But at the same time, you do have Sun in Libra, so you still need others to be around to sort of have a construction or an idea of your identity. Sun in success in particular can be very modest, so I would expect you to be a very humble or modest person. But it can also lead to sort of feeling misunderstood, more so than other people. Um, let's see here. So, and this, to be honest, this is kind of common where there's this kind of mixture here for you that I think people, do find you easy to talk to, but at the same time, they might not always understand you. So, sometimes you can kind of put on one side of your personality, which is very real, but it's just one side that is very easy for other people to understand and socialize with. But there's deeper sides there that they don't see or understand. Um, and again, this is common with like Libra placements in general, especially Libra Sun. But you have other placements that would reinforce this theme as well. That you can sort of like blend or merge yourself. You can adapt yourself and your personality to fit the circumstances of where you are. That being said, though, um, You are strong-willed though. I don't want to be too contradictory. Um, there's part of you that, I mean, you have Leo moon, so um, you naturally feel strong, like things are okay, but then it's almost like, okay, it's almost like emotionally deep down, really, really deep down, you feel like things are fine. It's only when you get kind of lost in your head that you can start projecting and you feel like kind of paranoid or you start projecting these more like negative interpretations of things. It's just, it's just the analytical mind that's more scared, honestly, because it's a more intense side of your personality. But this is really just that analytical side. Again, the base tone and the bulk or core of your personality is very upbeat in a strong and stable way. It has that, Leo moon is so warm and cheerful in a very stable way. I think sometimes you might feel like it's your duty to be almost like an entertainer or like a counselor, sort of. Like you have to constantly project this very upbeat side of yourself, which again is very real. It's a very real side, but you almost feel like it's your responsibility, and so it can be hard for you to be okay with expressing less cheerful emotions, especially with other people. Um, that's just one hardship that Leo and Libra can face at times that I think a lot of people don't recognize because we see them as just being cheerful and bright all the time. We don't realize that it can be hard for them because they feel obligated to constantly be that have that cheerful nature. But yeah, I think it's really good. I think you would make a good counselor, sort of, or because again, you're just so good at delivering that energy in a way that, like, you lift people up, sort of, with your cheerful energy in a way that is not domineering. It's not narcissistic at all. It's purely just kind of very warm and inviting, I guess. Hopefully that makes sense. So, and hopefully I've covered, I'm not just doing this to like boost your ego. You have a lot of like uh, likable qualities, I think. But at the same time, there are challenges that come with those as well, for sure. Okay, that was kind of heavy, but I talked a lot about the gist of your personality with your inner planets here. Let's go to you do have Venus in Libra, so Venus is in domicile in Libra. Venus would rule your appearance, but also your approach to relationships and how your approach to things you desire in general, to some extent, um, and also what you desire. So being in Libra, that would make you desirable. You're naturally, Venus is in domicile in Libra, so it's easily understood. It's almost like you kind of fit what people expect. So you can be sort of, I don't know how to put this, like attractive again, and it may be physically attractive, but a lot of it has to do with like your mannerisms or the way you represent yourself. It's somewhat easy for people to understand, and it's likable. Venus and Libra is sort of a likable, attractive placement, and it would mean that you would be what's the word? It would make you especially desirable in relationships because, again, your relationship style would be almost, it would be easily understood and it would be very natural for you. Relationships would be natural for you. Um, and I think this kind of just reinforces a lot of other elements in your chart. Venus is your chart ruler, so it's one of the most important parts of your chart, and it highlights this kind of empathetic and kind of like vibrant and cheerful side of your nature, and this is all just reinforced by your Libra Sun, your Leo Moon, and your Taurus Rising. Let's go to Taurus Rising too. Let's get more specific with that. So, Taurus Rising fits a lot of what I've said already, but it brings a lot of like grounded, earthy, stable energy into the mix. So, Taurus Rising, Rising represents your appearance and a lot of your mannerisms and how you approach things. It represents your how people first see you, your first impression that you give off to people. And so it does have that Venus influence. So again, that would make you easygoing, easy to understand, polite. You're very receptive to others, and people are receptive to you. You're pretty easy to get along with, I guess. You're easygoing. But Taurus in particular, again, it's that stable, earthy energy. So I think people would be calmed by your presence because you're consistent, you're easy to understand, you're stable, and Taurus is this really nice mix because it is kind of responsible and stable, but it's also fun and upbeat. So you have that energy that is not only consistent and stable and grounded, but also kind of fun and upbeat. So it's really ideal for just connecting with others or having kind of a pleasant aura that people would find you pleasant to be around. Um, yeah, and so I really think I keep noticing this pattern here. I really think you'd be a really great like counselor or something where you can. I'm not sure how to put this in the words. Like just your energy in itself is very reassuring for people. But you also have this pretty sharp intellect as well, and that comes from I'm thinking mostly your Libra Sun and your Scorpio Mercury. You can be very analytical and even detached as well. I think you can be more detached than people realize. And I think you've had a lot of challenges in your life as well. Sixth house placements are very difficult. You do have Sun and Mercury in the sixth house, and Venus is right on the sixth house cusp. So yeah, I think that's something that people might not see. Like, yes, you can be so cheerful and upbeat and energetic and so warm and easy to get to know. That's all true. But I think something that people don't see is that you've had a lot of really big challenges in your life. It hasn't always just been, upbeat and easy for you. You do know what it's like to feel pain and to suffer. And I think that's what creates this kind of humbleness that you have or humility. Um, going back to the whole counselor thing, I think that would make you really good at. I'm trying to think of other things like that, but something where you can kind of like care for other people or help them with their problems. Um, because not only are you cheerful and upbeat, comforting to be around, but also you have that sharp intellect. You're good at figuring out problems and planning things for others, and you have that really strong empathy as well. Um, and you're very understanding. I would think you'd be a very good listener because six house placements again are so they themselves are misunderstood, but they're very good at understanding other people. Um, so let's see. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of other, maybe working like the um, health services, medical field, being a counselor, or anything kind of like psychological or mental health. I think you would be really good at. Since I'm kind of talking about your career, let's go more into that. So you have Capricorn midheaven. So this is a little bit contrary to what I've said, but when you are at work or in public or maybe at school, anywhere in public or even online to some extent, your reputation is kind of serious. Like you may come off as more serious or even cold a little bit than you actually are. I think there's maybe this kind of professionalism that you have. Midheaven and Capricorn, it means that you know that the world is kind of a dangerous place. You don't expect it to be um, safe in a way, like, and so you make sure to be. You're just naturally very professional in public. You're kind of to the point and direct. Some people might interpret that as cold, which again is very contrary to a lot of the other things I've said. But really, it's not cold. It's just that you're doing what you need to do. It's very logical in a way. That's just how you kind of conduct yourself in the world. And I think this might be a little bit awkward when you're kind of younger or earlier in life, but as you get older, I think you can really move into this, and it indicates some leadership potential. You would be someone who is not, um, you're not someone like super outgoing and entertaining and making everybody laugh. You're more of the kind of person who could be like a leader, someone respectable, someone admirable, because you have that authority to you. Midheaven in Capricorn indicates someone who's a leader, someone who can have authority. Um, so yeah, that is something that I think you can move into, especially once you are a little bit later in life here. Capricorn midheaven, I personally think that the midheaven also pertains much to the structure of our life story, if you will. Um, and so I think I've noticed that midheaven Capricorn indicates you'd have a lot of challenges early in life, but generally life would get easier for you as you go on. So especially childhood or adolescence. I think especially adolescence and teen years may have been very difficult, but it's a gradual process, and life will continue to get easier, and you'll thrive more and more as you get older, if that makes sense. And and I do see you being a leader in something, whatever you do, later in life. Because again, you're someone who, with Midheaven and Capricorn, you have to work for your success. You have to work for your career. You're not inheriting anything necessarily, and it's not easy because you do have to do everything yourself. Really, you're a self-made person, I guess you could say. So it does take time to get that rolling and to get that momentum. But once you get that, then it's even stronger than if you hadn't gone through that experience because you've done everything you've yourself. You've worked so hard to get there, and again, that's reinforced by your Mars and Virgo. Um, you're so willing to show up and do the work. And this actually leads me to your nodal axis. You have South Node in Pisces and North Node in Virgo. Um, so this is definitely something that you'll move into later in life, into your North Node Virgo. This would indicate at a younger age having tendencies of escapism, whether that be through drug use, alcohol. It could even just be like sleeping a lot, anything where you're just out of the picture. It's almost like you don't even. It could be hard for you sometimes to just be in the picture, just to be a person. So you might want to run away or hide yourself, seclude yourself, or just leave this reality through drugs, alcohol, sleep, any kind of like addiction. There are a lot of those tendencies there, especially at a younger age. However, once you get older, your Mars helps this a little bit, because you do have that ambitious nature where you want to work hard. And so I think this is something that you'll increasingly move into as you mature. That you part of you might have those escapist tendencies, but at the same time, you're more than willing to put in the work and show up every day, maybe to help others. Mars and Virgo means that you like to help others. You like to be of service. You like to work hard to be of service to help others, etc. So yeah, that's just one common theme that you might struggle with at a younger age, but you become that much stronger with and really excel at later in life. Just being someone who is authoritative, a leader, someone who works hard. Hopefully, I'm articulating correctly here. Okay, Saturn and Taurus is similar to this as well. This kind of reinforces that same theme. So, Saturn and Taurus would indicate that you would have a hard time supporting yourself at a younger age. Oftentimes that can be financially. I mean, I think that's something we all go through at a young age, but this would pertain to you more so than other people. You would have more of a struggle with this. And it doesn't just pertain to finances, it could have to do with supporting yourself, maybe like emotionally, or whatever supports you, you know, would be extra challenging at a young age. But it's something that you would have to work very hard at and that you would thrive at and be, better than most people once you're later in life. It's just that something that you have to work extra hard for, but then you excel at later on. And this, a huge turning point happens when you're around age 28, 29, 30. Generally, people make a lot of progress in this area around that age. So you'll really, become much better at supporting yourself in this way right around that age. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, and that kind of that's really interesting. So that kind of solidifies a theme in my mind that I think part of you can be unstructured. Um, you know, you have that Taurus rising, so you come off as very structured, and you have midheaven and Capricorn. But so other people see you as being very stable. I don't think that they realize that you yourself can feel very unstable and that you can lack structure. I think structure is something that you need and desire, but sometimes it can feel impossible, or sometimes you might run away from it if you're in a time of crisis or a hard time, I guess. But again, this will all just unfold very naturally. It will become much easier as you get a little bit older. You'll naturally kind of create that structure for yourself, I think, and that will be really good for your identity. Um, yeah, and I think it's really important for you not only to have a solid, family or friend group, because mo I'm mostly saying this for your Libra placements, your strong Venus influence, and your even your Mercury and Scorpio. Um, Everyone needs a friend group to support them, or a family to support them. But this is especially true for you. You really need other people to thrive and have that strong identity. And oh, and the other thing I was gonna say is I really think it's important for you to help other people. I think it's something that makes you feel really good and makes you feel valued, and I think that's really good for you. So I'd really recommend that, especially professionally, because not only would that be good for you, but also you'd be really great at it as well. I think you'd be really good at helping others. And again, I want to say a counselor type role doesn't mean you have to necessarily be a counselor, but something that allows you to help other people, maybe emotionally or with your intellect as well, or both. Okay, I've covered most of what I want to say, but I haven't covered much about relationships. So let's go to relationships here. You have Venus in Libra, Mars in Virgo, and Scorpio descendant. And to me, as you may have seen, I did a video about this recently, but the ascendant descendant axis to me is the most important thing when it comes to compatibility, especially for romantic relationships. So with relationships, you let's see, it's almost like you. Okay, let me phrase this correctly here. It's funny because you naturally radiate and have your energy that you shine onto others, but it's almost like you don't need. Part of you is very self-sufficient, so I think relationships can be kind of odd, especially early on, because you almost don't need them, uh, because you do have a stability, especially when it comes to your relationships, if that makes sense. So, but you would naturally attract to others. You naturally attract relationships and romantic partners that are more kind of intense and edgy, more complex, more complicated, more emotional than yourself. They would have traits reminiscent of Scorpio. I think you want someone complex and interesting. You want someone different. Someone maybe more sensitive than yourself. And someone, you might attract someone who's a little bit more codependent. Um, I think you want someone with kind of like intensity. To me, you seem like someone who knows people very well. You're a people person. And so I think you want someone who is different and unusual, someone, complex, someone who you can kind of like figure out a little bit, um, someone kind of counterculture, someone that you would be, uh, like a very stable person for the relationship, and your partner would be more emotionally nurturing. So you would be more nurturing, like in a physical way, making sure that everything is okay physically. You'd be maybe the more responsible one, for instance. But then what they would bring to the table is that they're, more nurturing and sensitive. They're more emotional, and they would be good at figuring you out as well. So you may enjoy that. Scorpio is very perceptive. So that's something that you might enjoy. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a relationship with a Scorpio person, but it's definitely likely it would be with someone who either has placements in Scorpio or another water sign like Cancer or Pisces. To me, I would definitely lean towards Scorpio because you do have your Mercury there as well. So you already kind of think like a Scorpio. You can think in a very perceptive and emotionally deep type of way. You have that analytical ability that's focused on that sort of perception and that intuitive, um, all these traits that are reminiscent of Scorpio. So having someone who embodies that energy as well, it's something that you would already naturally understand and that you'd be drawn to as well. So I really see someone with water in their chart for you. Again, that would be Pisces or Cancer, but especially Scorpio. I think you would have kind of an affinity with that sign. And with your Mars in Virgo and Venus in Gemini, if you're attracted to men, Mars in Virgo would indicate being attracted to, men who are like Virgo. So that would be intellectual, hardworking, maybe a little bit modest, maybe very direct or kind of blunt. Um, let's see what else here. Yep. And then if you're attracted to, or yeah, if you're attracted to females, then you'd be attracted to women who are more kind of light and detached, more sociable, friendly. Um, people who don't take things as seriously. They're kind of just wanting to have a good time. Definitely very social or very focused on other people, empathetic. Let's see here. Just making sure I got to everything here. I think that's the gist of what I see here. Let me make sure I got everything. Oh, I think so you have Neptune and Uranus in the ninth house, Uranus in Aquarius, Neptune at the very last degree of Capricorn. You may have some very unusual beliefs, or, like astrology, for instance, could fit this, or some type of belief system that is very eclectic or unusual, um, or new, maybe. Um, yep. Okay, what else here? I think that your parents wanted. Oh, I didn't talk about your upbringing really. Okay, so with IC and Cancer, this would mean that you'd be sort of a Cancerian child. You'd have almost have like Cancer-like traits as a child. So this would make you kind of shy and emotional. But the funny thing is, so with Cancer, it would mean that you'd have a lot of time alone, but you'd also be drawn to making friends with others and make friends very easily. So you'd have both. You would have a lot of time alone, but you would also make friends relatively easily as a child. And again, you'd be very sensitive and emotional. You may have been very close with your mother, and again, this is relative, so more so than the typical child. You'd be very close to your mother as a child. Um, let's see. And I think it's funny because your parents look very different. The sun and the moon are sextiling, so they would be different, but they would also get along. They could, bridge through their differences. But with Saturn retrograde and in the 12th house, I see your father as being somewhat absent. So he was either, physically not there much of the time. Maybe he worked a lot, or he could have just been, like mentally not there for some reason. Some There's just something indicating a potential for the father not really being there a lot or not having a strong presence. Um, Actually, that's reinforced by your sun, which is in fall in Libra. So I really do see that potential there. I mean, it's weird because I see a potential for your parents kind of getting along to some extent and being different but getting along. But I also see a potential for your father not being really in the picture very much. So um, maybe you can tell me what that means or correct me if I'm wrong. But oh, let's talk about. So I just noticed you have Chiron it's not conjunct the descendant, but it's in the seventh house. It's about 4 degrees away from the descendant. This would indicate that you would be almost like a healer in relationships, and you may attract very healing people as well. And I think this kind of reinforces the attracting others who are very emotional, especially in partnerships or relationships, very emotionally deep. So they may have like healing qualities. They may bring up traumas in you that you know maybe you didn't realize weren't healed, that you never had closure with. They may help to heal those, and you may do that for them as well. And this would also reinforce what I was saying earlier about you. I really think you're meant to help other people. That's really important for you, and I think much of it might be emotionally, or I don't know, something of that nature. You may have been, traumatized or had some kind of struggle at a young age that you would then go to help other people who had that same struggle. Um, so, yep. Okay, but that's the gist of what I see. So let me know what fits for you. I'd be happy to continue our dialogue and see kind of what you think of this. And as always, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If there's anything you'd like me to look at more specifically, I'd be happy to go into that with you. But very interesting chart for sure. I mean, I say that with every chart, but it's true. um, Very interesting, and I appreciate the request. And for anyone who wants a reading, you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on one of my videos. But thank you for watching, and thank you for this request, and I'll see you later.